Homeworthy, I'm Jennifer. Welcome to my home in Washington, Connecticut. Come on in.
Hi Homeworthy, welcome to my home in Dorset, Vermont. I'm Joshua Smith. Come on in, take a look.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Grace. Welcome to my home here on Deer Isle. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Jennifer Hunter. I'm an interior designer, and we are in my country home in Washington, Connecticut. I would say this home is modeled after a Greek revival home. However, it is for a young family. I have 2 young girls, and I would say it's a fresh take on that. So there are some more modern conveniences. However, I did try to keep the front of house pretty formal and true to its style, but once you enter through the kitchen and the family room, it opens up, it's light and bright, and it feels like a more relaxed country home. Being a traditional designer and also an architect, it was so important to me to really pay homage to the area and the history here. So I actually drove around and studied period doors, hardware, moldings, all of the architecture around me, and that is what drove this home. I also could not find the correct hardware I was looking for, so I actually went to S.A. Baxter and created hardware for this home that was inspired by George Washington, and it was a pin that he wore in battle, and that's what inspired the hardware. I would say while this home is really modeled after a period home, I wanted to create it for modern living. There's somewhat of an open floor plan in this space because I really wanted the kitchen and family room to feel like one big space. However, there are other spaces that feel more closed off to the home. But I would say while the main entrance feels very traditional, most people enter through the mudroom, which is a much more casual space. And that's really where guests, close family and friends enter, and they kick their shoes off and they run down the breezeway into this family room. And I love how light and airy it feels. I wanted the double height lofted ceiling here. My husband and I fell in love with Washington, Connecticut over 12 years ago when we came here and stayed at the Mayflower for one of our first trips together. And it's really where the dream started. And we knew eventually that we wanted to raise a family here and really have this as our happy place. So when the time finally came where we could do this, we looked and looked for homes and nothing felt right. And because I have the building genes in me, I decided to hunt for the perfect piece of property. And fast forward 5 years, here we are. It was really a true labor of love. I dreamt it, designed it, built it with local vendors, and this was such a dream come true for me. Welcome to my entry. I absolutely love this wallpaper. It's my favorite wallpaper in the whole world. It is an archived wallpaper by Albert Hadley, who I had the privilege of interning for, and I custom colored it in a Pharaoh and Ball color. And I would say that clients and followers love this wallpaper as well, and I have used it in many projects since. I love this piece. This is a Cherish find, and it was the perfect table that is petite enough for this little space. The bench here is also Cherish that I had reupholstered in a remnant leather. It happened to be laying around at my upholsterer's shop, and I thought the watermelon leather was the perfect pop in the space. The stair runner was something that I saw at Temple Studio, and I wanted to reimagine it in a different colorway. If you look closely, there's some threads of pink in here. And again, I love how the pink just ties everything together. I'm not a gardener, so my florals live on my wall. And I met the collage artist Denise Fiedler of Paste, and she helped me imagine this garden. So to speak, everything is collaged and hand cut by Denise. She is such a talent, and this immediately went viral. And so Denise and I decided to re-release this collection as prints, and now everyone can have a piece of my garden. I also love this lamp by Christopher Spitzmiller. It's always a dream of mine to own a piece of his beautiful work. It is called the Albert lamp, again named after Albert Hadley, so it only made sense that it lived in my Albert Hadley wallpaper space. And then I wanted to do something fun with this shade, and so Denise, who did the collage garden, beautifully hand painted more florals on the lampshade just to give it that extra punch. This grandfather clock was also a fun, cherished find. I knew I needed something tall and narrow for this space, and I think a grandfather clock was the perfect solution here. Welcome to my living room. This is one of my favorite spaces in the home. I decided to color drench this room in an eggplant color in full gloss. And while it is a dark color, the room does feel light and bright still, especially during the day. And then it changes throughout the day. And by the time night comes in, it is a super cozy spot. I wanted to keep the palette in here really minimal, so bringing back in more purple tones and then contrasting it with fun pops of green. I fell in love with this African beaded mirror and knew that it would be perfect in this space, especially with the purple florals. It is not only a mirror, but it's a beautiful work of art. I have always wanted to do a chartreuse sofa. Not only is this chartreuse, but it is tufted and mohair, and it is such a fun pop against the eggplant walls. People can just come in, cozy up, and relax. This is a really special book to me. I actually found it at the Mayflower. They have an antique book collection there that you can purchase. And every time I go in, I look at the books, and this one happened to be a Parrish Hadley book, which is very close to my heart. It's not in print anymore. And so when I saw it, I knew I immediately had to have it. And now it lives open, and I am able to study and admire the work of someone that I admire so much. So this painting behind me is by a dear friend, Kate Westall, and it is actually a landscape, an abstract landscape, and it lived in my New York City apartment, and it didn't quite work there, and I knew that the colors would be so great in this space and that it would have a new home here. I wanted to have multiple seating areas in this room so that when guests came, they could cozy up by the fire, they could have a separate conversation over on the sofa, they could be playing a board game or mahjong at the game table. I designed a pair of custom settees, and again, this was a fabric by Botanical Trading that I was in love with. However, I wanted this very specific colorway, and they were wonderful to work with and designed this custom colorway along with me. This table is from First Dibs, and I know I said I don't love black, but this was just the most beautiful ebonized table, and it really felt like it belonged here. My most favorite piece in the whole home is this George Washington portrait, which again is by Denise of Paste, and it is a hand-cut collage. I bought this piece before there was even a hole in the ground. It was the first thing I bought, and I knew that it was gonna go over the living room mantle. The mantle is a piece that I designed after looking at historical mantles. I would say I get my design inspiration from old archived magazines, everything from old British magazines to country magazines, but I think really the time period is like 80s, 90s, and I have a whole collection that I love flipping through. I would actually say that the color palette was not my first natural inclination. I love the idea of color drenching this room in a deep purple, and then it kind of sat there for a while, and this was the last room in the home I designed. And I wanted to go bold. The dark purple high gloss walls are very traditional, but as this is my own home and I love a fresh take on traditional, I was like, why not mix it up with bright pops of green chartreuse, and then it kind of just evolved from there. But I did, again, want to keep it pretty simple with just those two main colors. This game table was something that I found on Cherish, and my family and I use it all the time. We have had many Monopoly games here. It's really a place that we come and sit on Sunday morning with our coffee and our favorite board game. I was kind of born into interior design. My grandfather was a builder, and so I used to follow him around on job sites my whole life. And he was really my inspiration. So I went to school for architecture, did internships in New York City. I had the privilege of interning for Albert Hadley, who really was my mentor and encouraged me to pursue interior design. And so I got my master's at Sotheby's in fine and decorative arts. And then I worked for Harry Heisman, who was a designer under Albert Hadley. And then he gave me the courage to launch my own firm, Jennifer Hunter Design, in 2018. And I primarily do residential design. I work all over the country. I do a lot of work in Texas, Florida, the tri-state area, and of course, New York City. I primarily work with young families who are buying their first home. And so I like to keep things traditional but fresh. Welcome to my kitchen. I really wanted this space to feel light and airy and a respite from the colorful entry and living room. As you can see, I kept it pretty neutral and tonal in here. There's a lot of white and rattan and natural elements, from the reclaimed beams to the fire clay brick backsplash. I love how you can really see the imperfections here and the hands and the glazing. I decided to do honed marble countertops. Again, I love the patina. I love how, in the bright light, you can see some of the etching and watermarks. It just builds and adds character to the space. Again, these unlacquered brass, the faucet, the hardware, it all adds that warmth and texture and character to the home. While there isn't much color in here, I did decide to go with this British Racing Green La Conche range. People make fun of me because I really don't cook. However, this is jewelry to me, and it was important to have a beautiful range. I wanted to use these oversized large pendants. They're from Visual Comfort, and I kind of love the juxtaposition. They're a little bit industrial, a little bulky, but I thought they were a great fit with the reclaimed beams, the tile brick backsplash, and some of the other natural materials and elements in the space. I love this little moment over here. This is my prep station. Yes, I know I don't really cook. It's a place that I can style with all of my beautiful plates and accessories, and it really brings so much joy and happiness to me. I would say in a kitchen, don't be afraid to use a mix of materials to bring in some warmth and character. Also, as you can see, I put art in my kitchen, just leaned up against the backsplash. There's nothing that should be too precious. It just really adds more of that personality and those touches. Building this home from the ground up was huge for my career. It was, although I'm very involved in the construction process with my clients, this was the first time I was very involved in the nitty-gritty, all the details from, getting water from a well, all of the infrastructure, blasting through ledge, every little detail. And so I think this is what gave me the confidence to pursue this for clients. What's really cool about this is that I really took my followers along for the ride and documented every part of the process. It even encouraged some of my clients to go out of their comfort zone when they saw that I color drenched my living room in purple. All of a sudden I was getting requests for color drenched living rooms. When they saw certain fabrics and different textiles, it encouraged them. Same with materials, I took a few risks. I worked with new vendors, I experimented with new materials. I really used this project as such a learning experience, as well as I was the guinea pig for myself. And so it did give me confidence to also replicate some of these ideas and materials in my own projects. This is my breakfast area and family room. It is an extension from my kitchen. I love that it feels so open so that when the girls are sitting here doing art or eating breakfast and I am in the kitchen making coffee, we're all together enjoying the space. I wanted it to feel like an extension of the kitchen, and so I love this farm table mixed with the painted Windsor chairs. The chairs really add a fun pop of color to the space. I wanted to show you all my plate wall. This was modeled after Gwyneth Paltrow's home. It is such a great way to add color while also displaying your plates. I have collections here from Christopher Spitz Miller to things I found at the flea market, to other plates that have been passed down to me. And what I love about it is it's ever changing. Anytime you come to my home or see photos of it on Instagram, there are new finds in here that I'm constantly rotating out. My favorite plate right now is this charger by Christopher Spitz Miller. I just love the sunflower. It's a little unlike what he usually does, and it was something he was experimenting with, and I actually saw it on his Instagram, DM'd him, told him I had to have it, and they ended up at my doorstep. This piece of art I had commissioned by Jennifer Holfelder, and I love her style. We use her a lot in our projects, but I didn't own a piece for myself, and I wanted it to really be representative of the country, the different farms around us, and so I took a few photos, sent them her way, and this is what she came up with, and I think it just works so perfectly in the space. Moving into the family room, I love how this room feels like a breath of fresh air, especially with the vaulted ceilings. If you can see, I decided to paint the ceilings this beautiful hue of a soft green to just reflect some of that light in. I decided to keep the palette in here pretty muted. As you can see, the real only pattern in here is this beautiful Jasper Dahlia print, but the colors are very muted, so I wanted to bring in some of those pale blues, the natural tones in the wood, the sofa, and the rug. This sofa is upholstered in a natural washed linen, and I know that most people would be nervous because it is not performance, and my kids jump all over it and wear it, but you know what? I love being able to see those imperfections, and the more character, the better. A home is meant to be used, meant to be lived in. This is such a big open space, and I wanted to bring in some more detail and millwork, so I added shiplap to the fireplace to add more character and a sense of depth. I also clad the surround in brick, which again is just a natural material and felt really right in the space. I had these large windows flanking the fireplace, and I knew I wanted to dress them with something, especially to bring down the height of the ceilings. And so this blue fabric by Jasper was one of those fabrics that I had always wanted to use, and I knew it would be great in this space. I love how it dresses this window along with this console table and the lamp. It kind of creates this beautiful little vignette. I think the memory, since this is a newer home, is really the process in building this home. I remember walking through at every stage when it was just a hole in the ground, bringing the girls here at that point when they couldn't even understand what was being built, to when the framing went up, we actually had a dance party here with the girls in this exact room where I'm sitting. And I look back on that video often, and it was just such joy. It was our first family moment in the house that wasn't quite the house it is today. Welcome to my dining room. This wallpaper is a mural that was inspired by the Mayflower, which is a hotel just down the street. I was in love with their garden room, and so I commissioned the artist to reimagine it for myself, and we picked out all the placement of the butterflies and the different bugs you see, and I have a few hidden little bugs in the space. We call my daughter Elle Ladybug, so you'll see a ladybug, and then my daughter Hadley Honeybee, so there's a honeybee somewhere in here if you can spot it. These chairs I found off the rack at a big retail store. You would never know it because I reupholstered them in a really fun Indian block print. And then to make this room feel more casual and country-esque, I actually ordered denim off of Etsy at the recommendation of my mentor, Harry Heisman. And I ordered many yards of denim and had for like $3 a yard and had the front reupholstered in this fun denim. This etagere has a really fun story. I actually found it 10 years ago at a local store, Privet House. It was a display piece that was not for sale, and I fell in love with it. It really reminded me of something that Mr. Hadley would pick. And every time I came into the store, I asked if it was for sale. They said no. And fast forward a few years, I was so persistent, and I said to the shop owner, okay, I'm not gonna ask you, I promise. And she said, ask me. And I said, is it for sale? And she said, it's your lucky day. I will sell it to you because we are going to change the display. And it was such a dream come true. I knew it was gonna live in this room and be used for display of my collection of china and flea market finds. I would say my favorite place in the home is the formal entry. Every guest that comes through is always like, wow, this is just the most joyful space, and it's so you, which I think is the greatest compliment when someone doesn't just say, wow, this is a pretty house, but it's so you, it's so personal. And that's what I really want everyone to feel when they walk in the home. If I had to describe my home in 3 adjectives, I'd say joyful, peaceful, and comfortable. Welcome to my pantry. I love how I have all my display on this side, and then this is really the snack closet. I didn't want it to feel like your typical snack pantry, so I created these really fun baskets after an English pantry that I saw. And so all my snacks are hidden in these beautiful baskets, and then I'm still able to display some of my fun collections. When I designed this pantry, I wanted all my linens to have a home. So I created all these drawers, and inside, as you can see, is my collection of textiles and linens. Next up, I'm gonna show you the mudroom. This space is great because it hides all of our outdoors things, our hats, coats in here, fun cushions so that the girls can put on their shoes. And then over here, I created this peg board. So all of these pegs are in here. It holds shoes, it holds hats and bags, and it's really a great place to just hang something up so it doesn't sit on the floor. I knew I wanted to color drench this space too because it's off of this beautiful breezeway and off of the kitchen, which again is so light and bright, and so infusing more color as you're walking through the space was a great balance. A misconception about interior design is that it's inaccessible, when really there's so many resources and so many designers out there that are accessible. One of my favorite places to shop is a flea market, a tag sale, an estate sale, or a place like Cherish. I found so many incredible pieces in this home from all of those places. Welcome to the primary bedroom. I love that this space feels slightly masculine. It wasn't what I imagined it to be, but I really love how it turned out. This wallpaper is a raffia and it's reminiscent of my living room growing up, along with the trim color. I felt like it was this perfect green that kind of made the whole room pop. Again, you can see the crown molding. It's different, it's interesting, it adds really a special detail to the space. The headboard fabric is a jasper fabric that has been on my wish list forever. And as the room started coming together, it really just had its calling here. I kept everything else in the palette pretty simple and serene since it is a bedroom. I always wanted a collection of botanical prints, but I couldn't seem to find the right ones. And so I enlisted Denise again to help me imagine the botanical prints that you see here. Again, they became so popular on my Instagram that we released them as prints, and I love seeing them from followers and also placing them in projects. As you can see, we have fun molding in here too, and that's something that I did in all the bedrooms just to add a special detail to the upper floor. I think it's pretty funny that this room has become known as the picnic basket. For some reason, the color palette, the natural materials just really invoke that freshness and picnic vibe. Welcome to my primary bath. This is such a retreat. I feel like I'm in a spa every time I'm in here. As you can see, I wanted to pay homage to country living, and so I created a custom buffalo check out of marble. And this was another one of those fun instances where I really got to experiment with materials and pattern, come up with something that's really fresh. This vanity is really special. I wanted to bring in more nature and natural elements, so I did a pickled cerused wood here, and you can see all the graining, and it really turned out so beautifully. Welcome to Hadley's room. This is such a fun, cheerful space. I think the wallpaper adds that touch of old world country, but with the pop of the butter yellow, it brings a freshness to the space. These antique beds I found at auction, and I was up all night on Live Auctioneers bidding way too much for them, but I was determined to get them because I knew they would be such a special addition to the space. I knew I wanted to use this iconic Schumacher rose print on the walls. It adds that perfect country vibe. I have two daughters, Hadley and Elle. This is Hadley's space, and we have two twin beds in here because my girls do love to sleep together, or if we have guests, it allows for that versatility. If you notice, there's a really fun crown molding on the ceiling from Fleur Home. It adds such a little touch of whimsy to the space. These prints over the beds are by Mary McGuire, and as I mentioned, we call Hadley Honeybee, so it's just a little homage to her. This is the Jill and Jill, and it connects the two girls' bedrooms. I love the pink and green color palette. It's soft and is really just such a sweet space. I designed the floor tile layout myself. I wanted to incorporate more pink and green and their abstract rosettes. My tile layer was not too happy, so I actually helped lay this tile myself. This beautiful Kohler freestanding tub reminds me of a vintage tub. The girls love to take bubble baths and splash around here, and it's a focal point in the room. This is Elle's room, and this is such a joyful, colorful palette. It really makes me smile on hers as well. I have mixed in new, old. This is a vintage textile that really adds that country feel in here. This is a chair with fabric from my friend Alice Sargent. And again, kind of this unconventional color palette that seems to just work in here. It's the more color, the better. This is such a sweet bunny print by Mary McGuire. I love that it's in this oval antique frame and sits so nicely over the bed. Elle really helped me design this space. It's her vision. She wanted blue wallpaper, and again, I wanted it to feel vibrant and really representative of her personality. And so Farrow and Ball helped me come up with the perfect wallpaper that suits the space. Elle's nightstands were a cherished find, and I love that it's not the perfect bedside table. It's a little beat up, the color's not so perfect, but somehow it just really works in the space. My design hot take is that everything needs to be stain guarded, bulletproof, kid-proof, pet-proof, and I always tell my clients that a home is meant to be lived in, enjoyed, comfortable, and that if something gets a little banged up or a ding in it, it just adds character, and it's meant to be that way. A color that you will never see in my homes is gray and black. I love color, I love joyful, fun colors, pattern plays, and so as you walk through the home, you will see a lot of that, but you will not see gray or black. Design advice that I wish I knew when I started out is that you really need to educate yourself on every little thing. You can't rely on anyone else, especially builders, contractors. You need to know every little aspect and every detail that goes into a home. We knew that we wanted to entertain here and have family and friends, and so it was important for us to build a space that was private but also connected to the home, and that is where the guest house dubbed the tree house is, and it's over the garage separated by the breezeway, and so our guests feel like they're on their own little retreat up in a hideaway. Right now we're over the garage, so it's separated from the main house, and this is our guest house, also known as the tree house. This is the guest bath, and one of my favorite features in here are the H tiles on the floor. I wanted to bring in something fun, and of course, the H is for our last name, Hunter. And now you're in the tree house. This is removed from the main house, and we wanted our guests to feel like they are in a tree house, that it's private, that it's peaceful, and really its own space. The suite itself has its own kitchenette, which is great so that guests in the morning don't have to come to the main kitchen in their pajamas. They have everything they need here, from a coffee machine, a sink, and a hidden mini fridge. They can enjoy breakfast and coffee here. We always have fresh pastries in the house, and so we bring them up here, and this is a nice place they can look out at the view and enjoy their breakfast. The treehouse got its name from the vaulted ceilings as well as the tree wrapped wallpaper that we really wrapped the entire space. This is a very well-known Sandberg Raphael print. However, I reimagined it in a fun colorway. I went to the brand and asked if I could do something on a light blue ground, and they actually added it to their collection, so you can shop it at Sandberg. I wanted the bed to be wood to really bring out the trees in the wallpaper, and it adds that natural element that is just so serene and so peaceful. I chose a wood bed for the space to bring out the trees in the wallpaper. I created these little nooks since we had the dormer windows. I thought, why not add a place to sit and read a book? And then we had this storage space for guest suitcases, but my daughters quickly took it over, and it's now this little hideaway back here where we added a light, a bench, and even handles for them to get in and out. Funny enough, we had a couple staying here and we hadn't heard a peep from them all morning, and it was 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, finally they came down and they said they had never slept this late in their lives. And so I think it's a testament to the space and how calming and soothing it is. Since I'm a city girl, I'm not a huge gardener, so I have my mini garden, my version of a garden, which is on the plant stand, and that is really my little labor of love, thanks to a local gardener, Becca's Gardens. She's helped me curate the perfect plant stand, which I feel like everyone who follows me always asks about it. It's ever changing, and it is as much of a garden as I can handle. So this is the front of the house. This is the mudroom entrance, and this is where I have my famed plant stand. I am always changing it up depending on the season, and with the help of my friend Rebecca from Becca's Gardens, she has really helped me curate the perfect plant stand. We had to do a lot of landscaping work since we bought just a piece of land. So when we got the land, it was dirt, there were some trees we had to take down, but we really wanted to feel like the home's always been here. I wanted to bring in some English garden inspiration. So we have these hedges, we have the hydrangea, our plant stands. I love the gravel drive. I love the way gravel feels underfoot. This is really where guests come in and they can park here in front of the house. We wanted guests to feel welcome and that they could come right in, and so this is what we designed. I really wanted the house to feel like it's been here forever, and as I drove around getting historical knowledge of the town, I saw that most homes were painted a creamy white with hunter green shutters, and so I did a lot of research to get that perfect hunter green shutter. The architecture of the home was inspired by a Greek revival home, as you can see in the columns here and also along the breezeway. This is the covered porch, and this is where we come out in the early evenings to enjoy a glass of wine and some snacks and just look out at the beautiful landscape. When designing the home, I always wanted a space that was outdoors that I can enjoy with my family. This is a place that we gather when guests come over, enjoy a nice glass of wine and some snacks. This is our outdoor dining area, and during the summer we eat a lot of meals out here with friends and family. I wanted you to feel like you were in nature and really able to enjoy the beauty around us. We really love dining out here because it feels like we're in this oasis. It's such a great escape from our normal city living, and we're able to really just do a big exhale when we get out here. We get to listen to the sounds of nature and just be surrounded by beauty. To me, home means family. I love gathering here with my family. I love hearing my kids running, laughing, giggling, echoing throughout the house. It just really brings me so much joy and peace.
Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you to Dorset, Vermont to explore the stunning home of interior designer Joshua Smith. Nestled in 70 acres of land, this exquisite French Rambler-style home offers breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains and valleys. The home underwent extensive renovations to restore its New England charm, and given the home's beautiful location, Joshua seamlessly integrated nature into his design. Large windows frame the gardens on each side, and a mix of contemporary decor and antiques creates a cozy, welcoming atmosphere. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi Homeworthy, welcome to my home in Dorset, Vermont. I'm Joshua Smith. Come on in, take a look. Hi there, my name is Joshua Smith. I am an interior designer and a lifestyle and wellness expert, and I am so glad you're here with me today in Dorset, Vermont. My husband and I found this house during the pandemic. We had been doing the New York City, upstate New York, Connecticut thing for years, but our house sold during the pandemic. Somebody knocked on our door and had to have it. And they were like, what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna go? Well, just a year before, we had been through this area, Vermont, exploring, and we found the Dorset Hollow. And if you don't know what a hollow is basically two mountains with a body of water or a stream of some sort running through it. So when we ended up turning in here by accident, we were like, where are we? Is this, what just happened? Because it is so magical here, and you'll get a glimpse when we go outside. But it's kind of amazing to see. It's like the sound of music, really is what the experience is. But we'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the house. So this house was built in the early 90s. It was a custom home, and it's kind of like a French Rambler. It just kind of goes all over the place, and it really capitalizes on being integrated in nature. So, you know, a lot of the modernists have that movement. We're all about incorporating that, but so were traditionalists as well. And so you'll notice there's different gardens on each side that face different areas. We've got the woodland garden in the front. We've got the more French formal water feature garden over here. And then we've got the big terrace out here with pond, garden, all that stuff. So you'll see that in a minute. But with the house, well, it hadn't been updated in ever. So we had our work cut out for us. And when I walked in, I was like, this is gonna be hard to do because it was during the pandemic. People weren't readily available, they were booked. But luckily I'm an interior designer, and I have some great people that work with me, and they were able to pull it off and help us out. Because we were in California at the time, and so it was very hard to kind of manage a project when you're not there. But we did it. And I'm happy that you're going to get to see it today because we have fallen in love with this area and have planting roots. What's interesting about this house too is that there's all those architecture features, even though the ceilings are maybe a little bit on the lower side than what I would normally love. The views that you notice from all around, like this goes up the mountain, and we have about 70 acres that kind of on our property here at the top of this side of the mountain, the lower hollow. Upper hollow is across the way. We'll look at that outside. But here we decided to, this was just like shambles and not much to it, but we decided we wanted more of a formal French kind of a garden. So these are hydrangea trees. So we're a little early, but those are the limelight, so they bloom white and then they turn with the fall. They're gorgeous, but we love the water feature there because who doesn't love the sound of water? So we can close the screens, we can sit in the chair and read. It gives us a whole other zone, because I'm all about the zones, right? Like, how do we actually live in our home? And where do we go to the places that energize us or inspire us or retreat to? And we all have cozy places. And I always tell my clients that when we're designing your home and we do your home and you move in, you've got to make sure you utilize every single room, because if you don't, we're creatures of habit. And so you want to make sure that you utilize the space to kind of chill and zen out, listen to that water flow, right? So that's why we did this garden here. It's more formal here. But it's this big grand entry. At first I was like, is this a bowling alley? How am I gonna make this feel like it's several zones? And so that's what's magical about the ability to do that, is so we decided to make this actually a room. And it's in the sense that you can grab a book from the library here. We've got, oh, this is one of my favorite pieces, y'all. So this is a Swedish 1860s secretary. Even the little key is still here. And they used to lock their little valuables in there. But my husband got this for my birthday because I've been eyeing this piece and I love this piece, but I didn't want to splurge on this piece. And so he decided to get it for me, and I was just over the moon. Love it, love it, love it. And then one of my secret recipes, I would call it, to make things not feel so stuffy is, you'll notice that I put a modern chair with it, right? Something about adding the modern with the traditional, to me, as you'll notice that as we go throughout the house, makes it feel not so stuffy, not so formal. I call it livable beauty. I call it livable antiques. I don't necessarily think everything has to be perfect or pristine. I love to embrace imperfection. So you'll notice a lot of patina, a lot of wear and tear, just like me, hey. So, no, all of us. And so I think that's a big lesson there, is noticing that sometimes our outward environments can reflect our inner state of mind and vice versa. So we want to make sure that, or at least I want to make sure, and I teach my clients, that we want to make sure our places are places that support us, that enhance how we live and support our well-being. I say our houses can be our stressors or our sanctuaries, but they can't be both. So that is why there's all these things that we can do to corral clutter, organize, contain, zones, water fountain features. We have to talk about this piece, of course, right? This is a Belgian mirror from 1876, I believe, is what I was told when we bought it. And my gosh, if this mirror could talk, could you imagine what it has seen? But it's pretty amazing because this is the original patina and how the mirror has oxidized and aged over the years and has never been broken. But it's hanging on by a thread. I don't think it can make any more moves. So I told my husband, I said, if we ever sell, this thing's gonna have to stay and people are gonna have to want it because we can't have it lose any more of its parts. But what I love about this mirror is it also serves as basically another doorway. It feels like you can go into another room. The reflection of it is absolutely beautiful. So this chair is so comfortable. You'll sink into it and you'll never want to get out. But when I first saw it, and my husband pointed it out, I was like, oh, no way. Because it was that red kind of naga hide from like the 70s. And this is where vision is so important, right? Because it could have been just like, no, that is not gonna work for us. But it was like, you know what? If we were to make that a creamier, lighter color, it could be super beautiful. And so look, we did it. It was a great deal. And so we bought the leather and had it reupholstered. And it's turned out to be one of our favorite pieces. Like I said, once you sink into it, you never want to get out. And that's why we put it here, is because it's a great place to put your feet up and listen to the fountain and relax in this area. And of course, again, once I said that I love to mix new and old. And so we chose to go with just a concrete round table next to it. Of course, I have a thing for crystals. I have for years. I started collecting when I was a kid. And so you'll notice all throughout bookcases and throughout the house that I incorporate those into all of my spaces for myself, and my clients usually end up with some too. And of course, fresh flowers, always lift your spirits. I feel like flowers are the single easiest way to lift your spirits. If you just stop and get yourself a bunch or go outside and cut a few and put it at your desk or your table or by your anywhere near you, you're gonna feel better. Just like you do when you go out in nature. Mother Nature has this magic about her. And you'll see as we go outside some more of that. So from here, I would say, let's come this way. I want to show you something in here because it's tucked away, but it's kind of like its own little world. So this is the powder room. But the powder room is a place that I feel like you can always kind of bring more personality, right? Maybe go a little bolder than you normally would in your living space. For me, I like more serene, calm, soothing, but the powder room is something that could be super fun. So I found this Pierre Frey wallpaper that is this watercolor of these trees, right? So it's kind of handsome. My husband was like, we're not doing flowers on the wallpaper. But trees, we were good to go. And this, just so you know, one of my designer secrets is I love to look for old frames, and then I just take them to the glass shop and ask them to make a mirror for them. So you end up getting this really beautiful piece and turned into mirror, so it's sustainable also. We love to do that, and that's the purpose of antiques. But then I just hung this fun artwork. This table was actually the previous owner's. It was a table and I turned it into the vanity and put the sink on that, and people always just love to visit the powder room when they're here. So here we are off the Great Hall, and as I mentioned, this is a Rambler, and when I say that, I mean Rambler. So when you come in the door, we call this the Great Hall, of course, but there's an entrance into the kitchen, there's an entrance into this room, and there's an entrance into the library. But this room was originally, this was a custom home, and it was a musician, and he built this so that he could have his piano in here. And his wife was insistent that the pocket doors be put in on both sides so that he could keep his music as contained as possible. So for us though, I wish I played the piano, I don't. We turned it into a media room. And so we wanted this to be more of a cozy space in between all of the brightly lit view spaces. And so we opted to go with like the grass cloth in here. I'm very warm, very comfortable. I want to go handsome. I found these amazing kind of like Greek god kind of vintage pieces, but I love to mix, like I said, the old with a modern piece, and then you have something that's more personal, more interesting. It tells a story. I think it's so important to like not just create. For me, my philosophy has always been, my job as a designer is to help you figure out who you are and how do we express that through your home. It's not about what I find beautiful, it's about what you find beautiful. And so my job is to help uncover that for you. So for me, though, this is something that just feels warm and inviting and cozy. And at the end of a long day when you just want to collapse, I could collapse right now, but I'm not going to. You just want to fall right in and sink in. So it's a fun space. So one other thing that I should point out, just because it's super fun, well, we have binoculars and a bird watching boat just in case people are here visiting and they want to watch, because there are so many birds. But these chests are antique, vintage like tea chests that came over, and they still have all of the paper kind of tattered and torn, but again, so much history, so much story. But I thought that the chests were a great way to kind of work in something that's a more mid-century style sofa, but not having super tall end tables. The tea chest worked out perfectly. So from the media room, we go right into the dining room. So follow me. Okay, so now we are in the dining room, and I love this because you'll see in a minute, the view from here is spectacular. Now the view from here, what's he doing? Why has he not finished that wall? Well, it's because I have a philosophy that you buy what you love. And you buy once and you buy well. And so, for example, this farm table is one of my favorite pieces that we own. It is French trestle table, probably in the late 18th, early 19th century, but it's absolutely stunning. It feels like talc, like powder. It's so soft because people have been entertaining and dining on this for hundreds of years. Like if you think about that, it's like, what? Of course, then I had to adorn it with some beautiful jewelry here with this crystal ball, but this wall is the wall that I'm struggling to find the right piece. And so I have an empty wall here, and I think this is where we embrace imperfection, and it drives me crazy sometimes. Oh, somehow the dog's got, open the door. Hello, that's Crosby and Mabel, and they have opened the door from the bedroom. Hi, can I help you? So they adorn the house as well. It's really their house. I just live here. But so what I was going to say is like, one of the things I tell my clients too is like, we don't need to rush just to fill something and buy something just to fill the space. You want to make sure it has meaning. You want to make sure it has resonance with you. I took a client recently to an art gallery. She's like, how am I going to know if I love the art or if it's the right for me? I said, you'll know. So as we were looking and they pulled out pieces, she's like, oh, that's pretty. That's pretty. And they pulled out another piece and she's like, oh! I said, stop. I said, did you see what just happened? She's like, what? I said, you said, oh! And she's like, oh yeah, like I've got chill bumps. And I was like, yes, you do. I said, that's called a full body yes. And that's how you know that's the piece for you. So I am waiting for a full body yes on the piece for this room because it can't be too big. It could be a big piece of art. It could be a piece of furniture. And I'll know it when I see it. So no rush. This is like a laboratory for us designers, our homes, where we're trying new things. And I have a store in town, a home store, and source antiques from France and Belgium and all around. And so sometimes I like to change things around and live with things for a while and then swap them out with other things. And so one of the things that I love that I've done with this French table is I've chosen to go with these mid-century chairs, which I could come around and do over here. But what they've done by mixing this again with this mid-century piece is that it feels less stuffy. It doesn't take up visual height. There's not a lot of upholstery, but they're super comfortable. And so people always kind of comment and love the combination of this French trestle table with these mid-century chairs because it's unexpected. And again, it keeps it kind of like, I don't know, a little hip and cool, a little less stuffy, because I definitely believe that everything should be livable and casual. And nobody wants to come into a house where they feel like, oh my gosh, I can't touch anything, or like, oh, if I set my drink down. We don't have that here. We have dogs, of course. So everything and anything can handle wear and tear. So we love it. And again, this rug too was one that we found, kind of this Turkish rug, but it was really nice because I was trying to find a size that didn't fill the whole room, because this is kind of also a pass-through. Like I said, it's a Rambler, so it goes in a circle. And this rug was just the perfect size to anchor the chairs and the dining table, because otherwise it would just have dissolved into the wood floors. So rugs are a great way to anchor the zone and have your furniture, wood furniture, not dissolve right into the floor. If I had to describe my style, I would say it probably depends on a couple of factors. One is the architecture, and two might be the location. So for this house, which is more of a country house, I tend to lean on the side of collector, right? It's like, this is the place where you get to kind of go more maximalist in the country. When I've done mid-century modern, and I worked a lot in Palm Springs, the vibe there is so much different. So it wouldn't be maximalist for me there, when if I spend more clean, ethereal, open, light. But for here, because it's also, we have all the seasons, there's something too that's very comforting in the winter about a space like this, where you can sit by the fire, you're surrounded by books, you'll see the collection of crystals all scattered throughout, and it's just pretty magical that any time of year. What I love about this house is you get light and bright, and it doesn't feel overly like heavy, yet at the same time it feels comfortable, and each piece tells a story. I've got, I know when I got that piece and that piece and that crystal and that little cow painting that I love so much on the fireplace. Always cow paintings catch my eye. And this little one is so interesting because it's an oil on board, right? And like I said, I love the formality of framed, but I also love the simplicity of unframed. You'll notice that's the theme throughout too. But this little cow painting I loved so much because I thought it was so sweet. And again, it's kind of like, it's got an ethereal component to it too. We were walking around and I was like, I should have got that painting. I should have got that painting. It's gonna be one of those regrets where you wish you had done it, but you didn't. Well, a little bit later, next thing you know, my husband's like, here's your painting. I don't know how or where he remembered to go find that thing, but he did. And that's why it gets a special little spot up here, because it's so thoughtful and meaningful to me. So, but yeah, so now we are actually have wound up in the library area, which again, Rambler makes a circle. And this is one of my favorite rooms, I would say, in the wintertime. Because I said in Vermont, which there are definite seasons, you get your fall foliage, which is beautiful. And then you get your kind of like your winter, like your white Christmas, all that. And this fireplace, fun fact about this fireplace is I used the leftover of the island countertop to make this stone hearth so that there was no waste. And it kind of just covered up the brick and made it very clean and fresh. So there's simple ways like that where I'm always looking to make those subtle changes, those subtle details that just really up level and elevate a home, but I didn't have to buy any extra stone. So I love this room, it's so cozy. In fact, this was the previous owner's settee, and I thought they were getting rid of everything. They were in their late 80s actually, and had not been here in years. And so I asked for a few pieces, and they were so touched that I wanted them, but it never recovered. But it's so cozy because it's nice to have the height. You don't always get that. But just to tell you a little bit more about me and how I ended up in this profession, it actually was not one of those that I was immediately like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be an interior designer when I grow up. I've figured out who I am by figuring out who I'm not. So I've kind of meandered to kind of like this house, as a matter of fact, to try different things. But I ended up having my first career was real estate in Houston, Texas. And I sold real estate for about 8 years. But during that process is when I really started to get the sense of how people reacted to spaces and how I reacted to spaces and how people lived. And sometimes it was frightening and sometimes it was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. But through that process is when I think I started to train my eye and start to really appreciate and notice subtle details in styling. And then I found myself helping clients pick paint colors. And then after they had closed, it's like, well, what should I do with the bathroom? But it wasn't really until I did my first house myself. It was a gut renovation. I knew nothing about it. And I fell in love with the process. And I'd always heard people talk about like flow states and doing something you love and you lose track of time. Well, I immersed myself in magazines and design books and started to really create this home for myself. And it ended up being a reflection of who I am. It was a reflection of what I loved. I was surrounded in, what I found is that there was this power to home. And I would walk in the door and I would be like, oh, gosh, it feels good to be home. And that was the moment that I knew how powerful it really is to have a home, and so fortunate to have that, but to get to create one for yourself is even more special. And so it's an opportunity to really express yourself in a way that maybe you haven't before. It's like, who would you have been before the world tells you who you should not be, right? So I did a lot of soul searching and and I take my clients to 40 questions to get to the heart and the essence of who they are, so we can really capture that in what we're doing. And that's the part that I love the most, I think, is that I don't have just one particular style, because it's not all about me. I mean, sometimes it is, but no, I'm kidding. With my clients, it's not all about me. It is about you and about me helping you express your vision. And I have the experience. I've had my business now for 13 years. I started with Stephen Gambrell in New York City. How lucky am I? That's where I got my first internship, and at the end of the summer, this is a lesson to all you out there that are thinking about design. I was an intern. So at 32, I basically decided, this is what I have to do with my life. I'm supposed to help people create spaces that are a reflection of who they are and how they aspire to live. And so I sold everything I owned, moved to New York City, went back to school, studied interior design. Got my first internship with Stephen Gambrell, and it was just like pure magic. It's almost like I felt like when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, the universe will show up and support you in so many miraculous ways, because so many doors just opened that it's hard to even explain how that all came to be. But I knew and felt that I was on the right path. And so people are like, weren't you scared to just sell everything and do that at 32? I'm like, no, actually that's what was so amazing, is I just knew, well, probably through my meditation practice and learning to become still and listening to my inner guide and my higher self versus inner critic, I was able to distinguish no, this is what makes your heart sing. This is what you're supposed to do. This is where you're going to feel fulfilled. And so I just trusted in that. And it's turned out to be pretty good, I have to say. It is so important and impactful in how our homes are the foundation for our well-being. They either set us up for success, or they can be detractors and be, like I said, stressors that are unnecessary, because the only place that we have actually control over anything in the world is in our own homes. And so we need these places to retreat to. I was using the word sanctuary years before the pandemic. People are like, I don't know if I'd say sanctuary about a home now, because that might alienate people and not get you business. I'm like, but you know what? A sanctuary is a place of refuge, and a place where you are restored. And I said, that's what homes are and can be if they're designed consciously and with that intention. And so since the pandemic, it was almost like everybody said, oh my God, you're so true. There was a book that came out last year, and as a matter of fact, it was called Seeking a Sanctuary. And they used one of my quotes in the foreword of the book about my definition of home and sanctuary. And so it's really kind of been very moving to me that I followed this dream, and now this passion that I had and how important home is, I'm getting to be one of those people when I used to flip through the magazines and be like, I wonder what it would be like to inspire people to live more beautifully every day. Gosh, that must be so cool. Because I would try things I would see and make flower arrangements, or try to style differently, or I never knew about groups of threes. It's so important, and I would learn those things in those magazines. And now it's I get to be and do just that. I get to teach people how to live more beautifully every day, because, we have to make the mundane more meaningful, because every day, most days are ordinary, right? But they don't have to be. We can dial it up just even 10%. So I could go down a whole rabbit hole about all this stuff, because I love design so much, but enough about me. I want to introduce you to my greatest muse, and one of the reasons why we had to have this particular space is because when you walk out through this rambling space, you are then, I would have to say the word mesmerized by Mother Nature. And she is definitely my greatest muse. I find all of my color palettes, my inspiration always starts with nature. I tell people, if you don't know what your color palette is, take a walk. look at rocks, look at the barks of trees. Sometimes the lichen and the moss can be the ochres and the yellows and the greens, and the browns, the earth tones are all right there. Okay, so here we are, Mother Nature, the greatest muse. I mean, just look around. We all know that when we go to beaches or mountains or places of nature, we all are like, or even a sunset, right? Or even sometimes a rainy day. But here is the reason why we had to have this property. Because of the views, the location, the land. The sun rises over here in the east every morning. I sit and have my coffee, I do my meditation. The dogs are taking their little naps after they eat. It's just pure heaven to me. And I feel like it's almost like a magical land in a way. I think Vermont is like that in general. It's so enchanting, and it's so interesting to meet people here and how they've all randomly sort of ended up in this area. Because I do believe it's like, we talk about different vortexes like Sedona. I think there's something special about this place too, for sure. But we actually added this terrace. It kind of stepped out into just like nothingness. But in order to really utilize this space, we added on this sort of like semicircle terrace, and we wanted to be able to step down and have these ledges. And I love to kind of work with the same color flower palette. So usually there's more lavender and Russian sage and salvia, different shades of purples, and it keeps it kind of very serene and fresh. And of course I love a white house, especially in the country. But the stone walls, the masons that did this, I have to tell you, y'all, it took them several months. They literally hand chipped every piece that they put together. I mean, true artisans. And that's another thing I love about Vermont, is there is such craftsmanship and such artistry about everything that people do, and that people that we got to work with on this home. But we love this space so much because it just feels like heaven. Okay, so we are in summer, which of course is like my favorite time of year. I'm a Gemini, Cancer moon, Cancer rising, so it's my season. But I also just love the green and the color. And so what you'll find here is that we've really chosen to kind of go very natural, very kind of like more English gardens, where it's just like everything can just grow, low maintenance, don't have to worry about it. We love the staggering of the pots and the heights, and we fill those with boxwoods and lavender and Spanish lavender. It's been very unseasonably hot here in Vermont, but usually it's not that. And there's always a nice gentle breeze because we are on the hills up here. So this is what I was talking about, where one mountain looks to another mountain. And then between that is the Battenkill River. The most amazing moment that I've had probably in my entire life that was totally free was we came out here. It was my friend's 40th birthday. It was this time of year. Her birthday was actually 2 days ago, and this was 2 years ago. We came out after dinner. It was a new moon, so the sky was completely black, but it's firefly season. So every night right now, down in the meadow where all the wildflowers are and the willow trees is filled with fireflies, and it's magical. But that particular night, because it was so dark, and the skies were clear, you couldn't tell where the fireflies stopped and the stars began. It was really one of the most breathtaking experiences. We all kind of like walked over here, and we just kind of like stood on these rocks and just said nothing for about 10 minutes as we took it all in. And from up here, you actually get to see how this goes down into the meadow. And so we have about 20 acres up here that's kind of open, and some land over there. We've got the pond over here. And then we have some more acreage, probably 40 more acres that go up the mountain there that we have trails through. They connect with our neighbor's trails. He has 100 acres, so it's really fun to kind of get to be in and amongst nature. And who doesn't love the sound of pea gravel, right? It's just such a comforting thing. So I'm all about engaging the senses, because I believe interior is not just something that we see, it's something that we experience. And it should engage the senses and nourish the soul. And so I always am making sure when I'm creating spaces that I think about how all the senses are being engaged in a multisensory experience of a home. So what I had always dreamed of when I was looking at these magazines, and my design magazines, was like I would see these New England gardens where you could cut your own flowers. And being in Texas, we don't have peonies, we don't have lilacs, we don't have dahlias, we don't have any of that necessarily. And so I had always kind of dreamed of having a garden. So for my wedding, instead of getting presents or whatever, if you wanted to do that. I just said, why don't you, if you want to, contribute to a garden fund, because I would love that everyone that was a part of our wedding contributed to the building of our garden. So it's really special to me because I have one now. Come see. It took us a year to get built last year, but so it's still a baby garden, but I did grow my first dahlias last year and my first peonies, and we are at an in-between season. So like, well, here it is. So this is a crabapple tree. And so I got my potting shed here that I designed and my raised beds, and I got roses on one side. We've got the peonies over here. They just bloomed and they were so beautiful. I'm sorry you get to see them. There are some inside, you'll see, that are left, but most of them are gone. And now we're that in-between season before the ranunculus comes, and then of course dahlia season, which is everybody's favorite, and it lasts so long, where peonies are short-lived. But yeah, so this is it, and I still am in the process of decorating the inside of my potting shed, which is in the works, but it's this definitely is a dream come true. And so we're growing flowers, of course. We've got roses, we've got kale, we've got tomatoes, we've got butter lettuce that we're trying this year. So this year was kind of a big experiment to see what does well up here, but I absolutely love it. I come out here every morning and start my day with a little bit of nature, and life can be so fast and hectic. It's so important that we anchor ourselves in, slow down, and I'm definitely one that believes in like putting your feet on the earth and grounding yourself and just drawing up. And sometimes it's like we forget to take that pause because we're just going, and then our nervous systems are fried. See, into the road hole. But anyway, as you can see, this really is a little bit of heaven. And like I said, I love that the roses are doing well, the dahlias are doing well. These will be dahlias, and they'll be coming up in August is more of when they start to thrive. There's one little peony that didn't quite open, but the rest of them have all been cut and distributed and gifted, and of course I've enjoyed some too. But yeah, this is really kind of the culmination of, I would say, my 15-year journey of when I was looking at magazines and kind of having this dream of being a designer living in New England. It's a dream come true. It's pretty wild. It's very humbling, for sure. It's nice and cool in here, so come on back inside. Okay, so I don't know if y'all got a chance to meet officially. This is Mabel. This is Miss Mabel, honey. And this is Crosby. Okay, so now though, let me show you the heart and the hub of the home. It's my favorite part, but it's the great room in the kitchen, which is one big open concept. And when we bought this home, this is where we ended up having to do most of the work to get it to be something that felt perfect for us. This actually was a little doorway that had a swinging door that went to the dining room. So I was like, how much space can we open? And so we kind of just tested, and we realized we could get this much more space. And it totally, this one thing transformed this whole house. I kid you not. I was just like, what? So it just keeps that flow kind of going. But this room especially is kind of so special because when we love to entertain and we love to have guests stay with us to escape from everyday life, right? But when we do, it's like we've got enough space here that feels cozy and comfortable. And like I said, nothing is kind of ostentatious or over the top. I mean, you'll notice there's like a crack in the antique, and I love that, right? Because like I said, I'm all about embracing imperfection. It's taken me a long time as a perfectionist to be okay with not being okay sometimes, because that's just how life is. And having the capacity to hold it all is really one of the biggest lessons that I think we're here to learn. So in this room, of course, blue being my favorite color, is one of the colors that I feel like is the most soothing to my soul. It's the one that kind of lifts my spirits, and I think everyone has kind of their signature color. And the interesting thing I'll tell you about in all my, fun fact, another one, is in all my years when I ask people what colors they don't like, I've never heard blue. Blue may not be your favorite color, but nobody has ever said, I hate blue. Not heard it once. But that was just a little side note, fun fact. But so I chose to go with blues in here, and one reason is because we have these amazing views outside, and so we often see the blue skies. And so I wanted to not compete with that, but yet bring that in and have that be a natural transition. And so even the artwork here, you'll notice, I kind of wanted it to feel and create some symmetry, and I wanted it to feel almost like blue skies, or how the skies changed, where there's fog in the morning, or there's mist, or it all comes through here. And so every day is just like a whole new canvas. My husband actually painted both of these for me because I couldn't find what I wanted, and he's like, I think I'll go to Whirl. And so he did, and I think they're absolutely amazing, and it's got all these amazing colors and textures and depth, and almost anchors the space now. Another fun thing, y'all, when you're searching for lamps, this lamp I've had with me since I started. It's probably one of my first purchases when I moved up to this area. Actually, I was living in New York. It's in my apartment. But this sort of those mid-century lamps that you always walk by and you're like, oh, that base is like that scratchy brass or that big chunky wood, and it's always looks just tarnished, and you just want to pass by it. Well, I saw this pottery and I said, this is very cool, and it's got my colors. I love the texture. And that's when I learned from Steven, it's like, all you have to do is change the base, have it rewired. So these lamps have just a bronze base now, and I had it rewired, and I think I paid, fun fact, I think I paid $30 for the lamps, and then I spent another $150 on the rewiring of the base, and they just been to me, a showstopper in every home we've had. This table too, oh my gosh, this is from the 1870s, Swedish. Original paint has worn, but you just can't beat that, y'all. I mean, to me, but this table is an example of why it's so important, I think, to incorporate antiques into your home. Number one, it's sustainable. Otherwise, they end up in landfills, which we don't need that. But also, this is like sculpture. This is art. This craftsmanship. So I think when I kind of try to educate my clients to look at it in a different way, it's like, these are very modern sofas, for sure. The angles, the lines, very modern. The coffee table, travertine, brass. We've got something from the 1960s, Harvey Prober, terrazzo here, a modern chaise, but then we've got this antique chair that I got at a garage sale that I then just reupholstered in the Sun fabric. I think this chair cost me maybe $300. So I think it just kind of goes to show that you can create more personality. It's like I tell clients, we don't want a catalog look. We don't want it to look like it's a staged home or hospitality. We want it to really feel like it's got some character and expressions of things you love. And so I love terrazzo. So these tables are made by Harvey Prober in the 1960s. And so they work perfectly. And who would have thought in a country home? But they do. And of course, another fireplace. So this is like the all-season room. We did have to add all of the millwork because one of the things that I find in some of the homes that I've lived in is that they feel more spec home-ish, like there were builders built them, but there was no millwork, there's no trim. And that's one simple way to really give some heft and some heart and some strength to a home is by adding millwork. And so we added the beams to the ceiling. It was just sheetrock. We added the wainscot here, and that really just changed to transform this whole space, for sure. And then from here, if you just go this direction, again, open, open, open. This is my favorite probably space of all. And even with the outdoors, y'all, we have get-togethers, everyone hangs out right in here. And I'll tell you some fun facts. So these are the original cabinets, which were done by a very well-known millworker. They were pine, and so they were kind of yellow, they had knots, and these pieces over here, well actually, yeah, these pieces here had like little clovers and things cut out of them in decorative ornament. This was like a plate rack. And I said, I don't want to have to rip out all these cabinetry. I mean, it's beautiful the way that it's done. So I ended up turning this, there was like another couple of shelves here, but I wanted a clean waterfall edge. So by doing that, we created more space, but we also got rid of some of that ornamentation that made it feel dated and old, and now it feels more modern and contemporary. And then by getting rid of this plate rack, I have this thing for flower paintings, like old vintage paintings. And it wasn't recently until I realized, I'm like, what is it that I love about these? And I realized that every one that I have, they're all individual flowers. So it's like just roses, just sunflowers. I have just, well, we can spin around. We have chrysanthemums over here. This was one of the first purchases my husband and I bought together in one of our first houses that I love probably the most of the ones that we have. I think the light and the colors are beautiful. But that was kind of interesting for me to see that after all these years, I never realized it wasn't floral arrangements that I was collecting. It was actual individual flowers just tossed in a vase. Super simple. Another thing about that though, too, I love, people can get so hung up on the frames. And it's like, sometimes the best treasures are in broken frames or chipped. And all you have to do is just hang the canvas. I love seeing the nails. Let's look at it. Let me show you. Because people always comment on this. And so if you haven't known this, now you will. Look at this. So this is just simply unframed. I took the frames off and hung the canvas on the wall. But the way they made the canvases back then is they just literally nailed the canvas wrapped around the frame, and you get to see the nails, which adds just another extra layer of detail and texture. So don't be afraid to have unframed and framed. In fact, experiment. It's a laboratory. Try different things and see if you like it. So more about the kitchen. So this was a beast. I mean, it's huge, as you can see. And the stone guy, so it originally had the one sink, and then it had 5 other materials. There was part wood that was raised. There was some countertop that was tile, bathroom tile. And then there was another part that drops down that was like butcher block. Well, I was not gonna have a multi-leveled space. And he's like, we're gonna have to have a seam. I'm like, I can't have a seam, not on an island like this. He's like, it's gonna be too big. Like, how are we even gonna get it in the house? I'm like, I don't know, how are we gonna do it? And he said, if you can find a countertop large enough to fit this whole space, I'll figure out a way to get it done. And so I found the largest piece of Taj Mahal quartzite that I could find. And the reason I love quartzite is because it's not like marble where you have to worry about staining, spilling. Quartzite is the most resilient, the hardest, the most durable. You can spill on it, you can get red wine on it, it cleans right up. So it's kind of like my version of when you think of like a white farmhouse kitchen. But I chose not to do that. I chose actually to take it a shade down from the white that I normally would do, and went with like a Benjamin Moore Revere pewter, actually, for the cabinetry in satin. And it turned out really nicely because I think it just softened it up a little bit. And it transitioned so well with the seasons. And of course, when he got this piece of stone, he had to build a hydraulic lift that he brought in. 7 guys came in because they needed the hydraulic lift to lift it up so they could then lay it flat. So we did it. And then surprisingly, I was like, how are we gonna support this thing over here? Because I wanted to have at least a breakfast spot for 2. So this was new to me, but there's a huge metal bracket that they built and had this guy make that comes out to support the overhang. And then we used a post that was similar to architecture here to anchor that, but the support is actually coming from that metal brace. So what I love about design is that sometimes when you get to those places where it's like a real challenge, like, how am I gonna do this? It's like, if you work together with your contractors and you're kind, then it's amazing how they'll jump through hoops too to get really creative and resourceful to figure out ways to help you really achieve what it is you're going for. And so I love collaboration. I definitely believe that it's like, I'm the designer, but we are a team. And I think, all the ideas coming together is how you get and achieve something masterful. So this is probably my favorite thing. And I didn't know till I did this house about all the fun things they're doing in terms of finishes. So this is actually what they call a leather finish. Most people are familiar with honed or polished, right? Leather is kind of an in-between where it has just a little bit of texture to it and feels super soft. And so both the exterior, which I chose to go with just an absolute granite, because there's so much of it. I think this length of that one is like 26 feet. Side note, the homeowner who custom built that had the musician husband, she was a chef. And so that is why the kitchen is probably the size that it is. But this was just like a big open, kind of like commercial fridge, Again, the clover motif echoed everywhere, so I had a millworker come in and just replace those pieces instead of tossing out all the cabinetry altogether and making it work for us. So now that we've seen about the kitchen, I want to tell you a little bit more about some of my favorite things. So come with me. So this was another piece that like had all the clovers and the things, but I'm like, but I love this piece because it's going to help me showcase all the things that I love in a nice, tidy way, because tchotchkes everywhere and just sort of, it's like makes me crazy. But this helps me to display the things that I love and that bring me a lot of joy. And so I do love flowers and I do love floral plates, and I love to mix them with just white plates, and that's my husband will let me get a pass there. But nothing too overly floral. But some of my favorite things, like look at the color of these. Gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. And so I will use these as like a salad plate with just a white dinner plate, and you just up-leveled your whole dining experience. One of the pieces, like I said, like I love this cabinet in particular is because it holds so much meaning and so much history. This picture here, for example, was a picture that David's mom, who is no longer with us, but when we got engaged, we were she came to visit in Connecticut, and we were out antique shopping because we all love to do that. And she saw this and she said, "Oh my gosh, stop!" She said, "Look at this." And I said, "What?" She said, "Isn't that precious?" And I said, "It is precious." She said, "Well, I want y'all to have this as a gift of my excitement for your engagement." And so this means a lot to me. And so that's here. And then these plates actually here are also, they were David's mom's. And so his whole family wanted me to have them when she passed away. And that just means, you know, so much. Like, so when people just like love you and appreciate you and know who you are and what you love. And it was kind of unanimous, like, Josh gets these, which is so special to have and be a part of family, you know. This is actually her china too, that I incorporated into all of this. And one thing I'll tell you about styling and mixing, and I rearrange things all the time, but it's kind of thinking about layering groups and textures, because this could be a hot mess, really, if I just shove stuff in here, right? But there is a method to the madness, and a lot of that is like layering in texture with wood, with standing up a plate, the groupings of 3, but like have them on a plate themselves, which kind of corrals them and contains them. I love to bring in books as layers, because every time people come into my retail space in town, they're like, you know, I can get the sofa and I can get the table and chairs, but it's the layers. Like, how do I do the layers? And so it is the layers that bring a home to life. And that's where I really love to kind of teach about that and do workshops about that. But it is also varying the colors, textures. Again, like I said, cutting board. This is like an architectural fragment, but I love that color. So I think I bought like 5 of these. And they just kind of add a nice patina to this area. But even though there's lots of things in here, there's still negative space too. And I think that's also really important to remember, is negative space when you're designing. And if you don't know what negative space is, it's kind of the space that has nothing in it. So you'll hear edit a lot, like sometimes you need to edit, edit, edit. But when you're designing, you want to think about where is the space that gives everything room to breathe, right? Even in a floral arrangement, for example. So these are flowers that, since we're in between seasons, some of them from are outside and some of them are from a dear friend. There's a farmer here, Lure Farm, and she has the best dahlias, tubers, ranunculus. That's just been teaching me a lot. But these flowers came from her garden, this Stilby. But you'll notice in the arrangement, like there's negative space. Like I didn't just cram them all in there. There's space kind of them to breathe. But I layered in some texture and dimension and color. And I always love to keep kind of green on the center of the countertop, because I just feel like bring in the green, right? It's just a great reminder of Mother Nature, and it's a great way to, well, I mean, this is actually rosemary, so sometimes I just snap, throw it in the aga, which is another actually interesting piece of this home. This was here, which I didn't know what an aga was. So this is an educational moment. So an aga stove, it has its own chimney, believe it or not. I thought we had 3 fireplaces. Nope, it's the stove. So these are very popular in Europe, and they're always on. And at first I was like, well, I'm not okay with that, because that means that's burning a lot of propane. But come to find out, it only burns the amount of a pilot light of a gas stove, which was surprising to me, but this is always on. They're always set at a certain temperature. The skillet is like so hot. It kind of raises the temperature in here 5 degrees in a way. But like this is your highest setting. That would be your high, medium, low. Then it kind of gets to warming drawer, and then this is kind of a warming plate. And so it's actually a little warm to the touch. We were gonna get rid of it, but it was gonna cost more to get rid of it than it would have cost, I don't know, to buy a used car. Because this thing weighs a ton, and like I said, the chimney. So we've had to learn to cook with an aga, and it's actually been kind of fun because why people love them is it's kind of like a wood burning pizza oven in a way, because you can't dry out food. Like I'm actually now can make good chicken, turkey, pork tenderloin. In fact, my husband one time left pork tenderloin in the oven for like an hour, and we thought it was going to just be a shriveled up, dried, not edible. It was moist, delicious, wonderful. So we've come to love this aga. People that love to cook come in and they just are like, oh, can I cook on that thing? I'm like, sure, if you want to come cook a meal, be my guest. We would love to have you cook for us anytime. This area, really quickly, was another big case, kind of like what we have over here. And I wanted to open it up, and I wanted it to feel a little more airy and not so heavy. But I loved the fact that it had a bar sink here. So I kind of took that piece out and turned this into floating shelves. Love to style it up. And then, again, it's just great for kind of like serving cocktails in our bar area. We've got our ice maker and all that. Yeah, again, here's an old painting of flowers, and I've got a landscape, but then I've got a modern mixed media collage with this modern artist who makes these gorgeous vessels mixed with an old French watering jug. Isn't it wild? Works of art, I love them. Okay, so why don't we now go check out the bedroom? So this is probably really another one of my favorite bedrooms in the house. It's actually the guest suite, but it is upstairs, and so you get the amazing architecture of these dormers on both sides. This goes out to the mountains. The other one goes out to the other mountain that you've seen the view of. But when thinking about guest suites, I think it's always important to think about, like, how do your guests feel most comfortable? What do they need in order to feel like they're kind of on vacation? And so I like to make sure there's always a desk in a room, because nowadays sometimes you got to take a Zoom call. So having a desk, and this desk is one of the first pieces I ever purchased. I was working at Stevens. I did my first design project, and I said to myself, you know what, you deserve to get one piece with this first design commission. And so I got this marquetry desk in the 1960s, this chevron pattern. And so it's also got special meaning to me as well. But create a little moment here. People can also use it as a vanity. So great for getting ready when you're sharing space with others. And then this was actually a fun little place to kind of solve, because there's this niche here. So I only could do a queen bed, and I normally like to do king, but this is a queen bed, and I got these amazing Danish nightstands that have this cool dovetail joinery, the way that they were made. There's no nails in any of this. It's all pieced together by the way the wood was cut. Isn't that wild? And of course, who doesn't love fluffy, comfy bedding? So in here, I kind of had this thing where somebody told me recently, they walked into my shop in town and they're like, you kind of sometimes have this like coastal country vibe. And I'm like, coastal country? Huh. I've never really heard that phrase, but I kind of like it, because oftentimes in bathrooms of homes that I do in the country, you will find ship paintings. I love seascapes. It's hard because it's like when you think about, oh, I want a beach house, or I want a country house, or I want a I get to have a little bit of both. But no, this one is one that this is one of my favorite pillows too. I love Ticking Stripe. It's just classic, it's timeless, it goes with everything, and it just says everything to me about summer freshness and fun. But this is actually a vintage textile, so it's got some little holes and things in it. But this lady makes, that everyone feels that I can see every year when I go. She makes the most amazing pillows from old textiles that she finds. And so these were kind of the starting point for that. But then my mom stays in here a lot, and David's mom stayed in here a lot. So David let me have one floral. I got one floral pillow. which I think adds just another layer of fun to this room. And then of course you want a reading space so they can lounge, put your feet up, read. And then you've got the amazing views of the mountains here, and you also get a little sneak peek about what's happening down there as well. So this, again, is one of my favorite little spots, kind of like a little hideaway. A home to me is not just a shelter, but a place that we dwell and we connect to ourselves, to our loved ones, to the divine. It's a place where we make memories. It's a place where we can nourish our spirits and inspire our minds. And they have the ability to really transform our lives in so many ways and support our well-being. And with that, I think the UPS man is here, and it's time for me to get to the studio because I think there are people knocking on the door. I can sense it, wanting to buy antiques. So I'm going to head that way, and until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Grace. Welcome to my home here on Deer Isle. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Grace Becton. I'm an interior designer, and welcome to my home on Deer Isle, Maine. My path to becoming an interior designer was a winding one. The first decade of my career, I spent working for humanitarian and development organizations and causes. And then during COVID, like so many people, I ended up quitting my job and kind of completely shifting my life and really starting to focus on design. And it all started with this house and the renovation of this house. So finding this house it felt like just one of those kind of wonderful moments that things happen for a reason. I was sitting at my mom's kitchen table 10 minutes down the road, kind of scrolling Redfin as people in their 30s do. And I came across this piece of property and I was like, wow, I just haven't seen that before. It's right down the road. It looked like it had a gorgeous kind of forest, waterfront combo, and the home itself just looked like it had kind of wonderful bones. It was a week before I was actually taking an assignment in Uganda, so it was a kind of whirlwind. I came to see the house, I loved it, and I moved really quickly. About a week later, actually, I closed on the house. And there was something about kind of having this amazing sense of place here and kind of securing that before moving to the other side of the world felt really special. This is the living room. It's definitely my favorite space in the house. And, you know, the house is relatively small. It's a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom, you know, little Cape house. And so this space is the biggest space in the house. And it's where I gather with friends and family and just kind of either airy summer afternoons with all the windows open or really cozy kind of winter evenings with the fire going. And so there was actually a pretty big change in this space on this wall right here to my left, where originally there were only, I think, 2 windows. And now, as you can see, we have 6 windows. So just, again, really emphasizing that indoor-outdoor connection and trying to highlight the lovely view and the ocean beyond. So I really wanted a sectional just for kind of cozy movie nights. This is a Serena and Lily sectional. It's the Barton sectional, and it's a kind of white perennials performance fabric. People said I was crazy doing a white sectional, but honestly, it is great. It's really held up wonderfully well. And yeah, it just really helps the space feel light and airy in a way I don't think it would be otherwise. And I love kind of the contrast with this textured rush house seagrass rug, which is actually like very soft underfoot and hardy. And then, yeah, just a little chest where I can hide all the things I'm not using. And, you know, I played for a long time with should there be an accent chair here, and it just felt like it was cutting off the rest of the space. So I ended up opting for these poofs, which have worked out great, actually. And the artwork on the walls is actually by my mother. She does painting in her spare time and is also kind of a ceramicist and a collage artist. So it's wonderful to be able to incorporate those as well. And if we move over here to the built-in shelving unit, so the shelves were actually already here in the house. She had kind of like a smaller TV when I moved in, and I wanted something a little bit bigger, so I did cut out this kind of central nook for the TV, and then again just decorated it with all of my little knickknacks. This is a fun kind of wallpapered box that I found at an antique store in Ellsworth, Maine. This is a turkey feather from my field. There's a family of turkeys in the field outside that roam around. These are just like lovely little art pieces by an artist called Linda Deming, who used to live in the area, and I just love how she captures kind of the islands and Acadia beyond. It's just all stuff that means something to me, which is really lovely. So this room is large enough to have kind of two separate distinct seating areas. So there's kind of more of the TV sectional area, and then this is the area where you can enjoy the fireplace, which, as I said, is my favorite part of the house. Beautiful granite fireplace, came from a company called Freshwater Stone. And my understanding is that they needed a crane to kind of get it in here because it's just such large pieces of stone. But I love it. It has lichen on it, and it just brings amazing texture to the space. When I bought the house, I'm not sure why, but for some reason, there was vertical shiplap on this wall only, and there were no built-ins, and it just didn't work for me. So, you know, I made it horizontal shiplap like the rest of the space, and when we were doing a little bit of demo, we realized that there was tons of empty storage space behind the fireplace. So we made these built-ins, and so we have firewood storage right here, which is great. And yeah, this piece I actually got from my father, which is an oil painting on board, which is cool. I have a very nautical family. I grew up sailing. I sailed competitively in college, so it felt very appropriate to have a boat there. And then, yeah, I kept the kind of white furniture theme going and found these little Ming-inspired stools on Cherish, which I had no idea if they would work, and they got here and I felt like they did, so that was very exciting. And yeah, just added some like faux furs to make it feel cozy, and again, kind of mirrored the same rug on this side of the space just because I want them to feel connected, given they're right next to each other. But it does, I think, feel like its own distinct seating area. And then you have a Amber Lewis Shop Amber light over here that again just brings in a little bit of texture. This basket over here is actually from Uganda, from when I lived in Uganda, and another painting by my mother. And this light was actually original to the house as well. I thought that was really fun. These are actually plans for the house. I was able to get a lot of kind of the original architectural plans for the house, so I like to keep them here. And actually, this was kind of fun. So I recently was shopping at an antique shop called Ronald Hart Antiques in Deer Isle. And I found this, which is actually It's so cool. On the back, it says that it's a border from wallpaper in the White House during the John Adams presidency. And I spend most of my time these days in DC. So that just felt like a really cool little moment to bring DC here. French doors were also original to the house, and painted them in just like a slightly darker shade of green, providing a little bit of contrast. And this kind of gets pulled in throughout the house and in different areas of trim. And I just really love that combination. Welcome to the formal entryway to the house. It is kind of between the dining room over here and the living room over here, and is just meant to be a space that's very functional. There's a lot of weather in New England, and so we need a place to kind of put all of our coats and boots and stuff. And I just kind of went for a very simple look here. This is actually a piece of art that my dad got at auction because he felt like it reminded him of Deer Isle. We're not fully sure who the artist is, but it's a beautiful piece. And then, yeah, we just have some kind of hooks. These are also actually from Amber Lewis, Shop Amber, that kind of have a little bit of a nautical cleat vibe that I appreciated. And we have an antique rug here. My dad is very into collecting rugs, and so I get to benefit from that immensely. And then we have kind of a traditional bench, red bench here that I also got from Ronald Hart Antiques in Deer Isle Village, and it's just kind of the perfect sweet piece for sitting down and putting on your boots in the winter. Well, welcome to the dining room. So this room, before the renovation, I actually didn't change anything structural in the space. It was just a little cluttered before. She had a lot of kind of knickknacks around. So I just wanted it to be a place for friends and family to gather. I grew up here and my parents live down the road, so it's important to kind of have a space where we can all get together. And I wanted to be able to host because I really enjoy that. So you'll see that the walls actually throughout the house are shiplap, and they're painted this beautiful kind of, it's called Sea Mist by Benjamin Moore. So it's this beautiful green, and the whole house kind of has these lovely shades of green throughout. And you have the post and beam structure, obviously, that just kind of lends so much texture and character to the space. This table is actually kind of an old Restoration Hardware table that I don't even think they offer anymore, but it is definitely not a precious table. I love that it kind of has stains from all of the different kind of lobster dinners that we've had over the years. And I always say to people, like, don't worry about it. You spill butter on the table, it's totally fine. It just adds character. I will say these beautiful flowers actually came from my neighbor right across the street, and my mom helped with the arrangement. So that's just very much kind of what you find on Deer Isle, is lots of people helping out. So love that. And this chandelier, I just loved that it adds a little bit of kind of curve and movement to the space. That's a Korean company chandelier. And then over here, I wanted a little bit of contrast. So this is kind of a more Asian piece, and I've spent a lot of time in Asia working previously before my interior design days, so it felt kind of appropriate. And this piece of artwork is actually my dad's. So he does what he calls digital montage, which he takes kind of photographs and paintings and drawings and kind of molds them together and creates these really interesting kind of ambiguous interpretations of interior and exterior spaces. And so I just love that you're kind of in an interior being invited into the artwork to kind of interpret it as you will. That's a piece that I really Love by him. So I really love this rug. I think for a long time I had a different rug here and it just wasn't working, and this rug just has a texture and a color palette that I think really speaks to the space and kind of feels a bit earthier. So I really appreciate that. And I mean, these chairs are they're pretty basic, but honestly, they're super comfortable and you can kind of sit for hours around the table. So I love that. So the house, when I bought it, it had previously been owned by two people who had spent kind of a large portion of their lives in New York City, and I think they were actually German originally, and they built this house in the 80s, and they just had wonderful taste. Every kind of detail was really taken care of, so the renovation for the house really felt like trying to honor what they had done and the care that they had taken, and just kind of let the house speak for itself. So I did a few things. I completely renovated the kitchen. It had been kind of a very simple, almost like Quaker-esque style kitchen with just open shelves, and all the bowls and everything were exposed. And so I kind of worked with a cabinetry company to do built-in cabinets all over the kitchen. And then in the room we're sitting in, actually, there is a view to the ocean, and there were only 2 windows on the ocean side. So I actually added, I think, about 4 new windows on the ocean side. And then upstairs, I added some large windows in the primary bedroom, so you could get kind of every morning when you wake up, you get this gorgeous view of the Camden Hills across the way. And the house is sited. It's kind of beautifully sited on this hill that overlooks the ocean. I think a lot of houses in Maine are often sited right next to the ocean, and this is sited on an old farmhouse foundation, actually. So you have kind of these 100-year apple trees in the field nearby, and you have a beautiful kind of soft field heading down to the ocean. And so I wanted to capture that in the primary bedroom. And then in the bathroom upstairs, I redid the shower. It was just a little kind of dark and under an eave, so I lightened it up and added some new tile. The bones of the house were amazing, so I tried to kind of do minimal work that didn't take away from the existing structure. Kind of on the outside, it looks like kind of a traditional Maine cape. It's a post and beam structure, so a company called Rockport Post and Beam created the structure, and I think needed a crane to kind of put it all together. And then a local builder that I actually used for the renovation, built the house once the structure was existing. And it was wonderful to use him for the renovation because he knew kind of every nook and cranny of the house already because he had built it originally. So yeah, but it's kind of a lovely, it feels like an old house, even though it was built in the 80s. I mean, the previous owners, just little details like they wanted square nail heads in the floor that you can actually see that are from the 1700s. And so there was like one company in Massachusetts, and they ordered all of the square-headed nails for the floors from that company. So you have kind of this wonderful sense of history while also having this kind of, I would say, kind of transitional coastal Cape house. Okay, so this is the kitchen, and this space was actually kind of the biggest transformation in the entire house when I did the renovation. So previously, there was kind of smaller windows here, just kind of open shelving where everything was out and about. And I worked with a company called Crown Point Cabinetry, based out of New Hampshire, to do a custom design for the kitchen, and just love kind of, I was really attached to, this little detail where you have kind of, this is actually the original farmhouse sink in the house, repurposed that, but love that we have a little bump out of that here, and made the windows a little bit bigger, and just kind of, again, wanted to emphasize that indoor-outdoor connection. And previously there was no hood, so we did a custom design hood for the range, and then just a really kind of hardy quartz countertop that gets a lot of wear and tear because I love to cook and I tend to kind of host Thanksgivings and stuff here, and so this kitchen actually gets a lot of use and is really great. These lights, so these were actually original to the house when I bought them. They're like a schoolhouse light, and again, it just speaks to the previous owners, like really had wonderful taste. So I kept them because I thought they were great, and I think the schoolhouse lights are just kind of classic and simple but very attractive. So, and now if you come over here, I can show you the pantry. It's just a little nook. This actually used to be a door, and you used to be able to kind of walk through this space into the entryway, but really felt like just need a little bit of extra storage, little place to kind of make drinks. And right off the dining room, we have this little powder room that is just super convenient. Again, this light was original to the house and I just loved it, like very sweet little kind of scalloped shade, glass shade. And yeah, it's just sweet and convenient right off the dining space. So my style, it's always such a hard question, but I love kind of blending antiques and transitional pieces of furniture. You know, I think so much of my style really does come from having grown up on the coast of Maine. So, I mean, I love kind of traditional New England architecture and the kind of simplicity that it offers, as well as kind of how it interacts with the surrounding environment. And I just think sense of place and where a project is so incredibly important in terms of how you approach it. So it really does look different with every client and, you know, kind of what I'm getting from them and what their style is. But I really do try and blend in kind of as many antiques as I can, while also kind of, if people have kind of special pieces from their family, I love to weave in those. And with this house, that was so much of what I did. You know, kind of every little piece is an antiquing trip with my mom, or, you know, both of my parents are artists, so there's a lot of their art around the house. This Deer Isle as a community has a wonderful group of artists, and so it's wonderful to be able to include those people in the home as well and their pieces. The style of the home as well, I really wanted it to feel light and airy. I think looking for a blend of kind of it being refined while also, you know, it takes grit to live in a place like this. And so I also wanted there to be kind of, you know, textures and natural elements as well, kind of incorporated throughout that speak to the place. Welcome to the study area. This is actually the first space that people typically experience in the house, just because I often use the side door. And it's a space that I work when I'm up in Maine. I work remotely, and so I typically work at this kind of beautiful mahogany 18th century George III desk, which I just love. And again, another find on Cherish. And this piece of artwork is, again, one of my father's, and the title of it is called Stillness at Mistake. And it's just one of my favorites of his. He, I think, has a talent for capturing still moments that kind of make you think about things. So love that being there. And then, yeah, this is just a little seating area that, you know, trying to, again, maximize access to that summer breeze, and it's great to kind of take a moment. This space used to actually be the pantry when I moved into the house. So it used to have the refrigerator in it, and this whole wall used to be shelves with just kind of storage. And I had this vision of I wanted people to walk in the house and I wanted them to kind of immediately have this like beautiful outside view. So we put in these quite large French doors that allow me, when I'm working, to just be able to look out at the forest. Welcome to the porch. This was new. I put this in a few years after I moved in, just as a space to really enjoy this gorgeous view. Again, it's a kind of uniquely sited house at the top of this hill. So you have these kind of lovely apple trees and, you know, the rolling field going down to the ocean. Yeah, so I spend kind of evenings out here looking at the sunset and drinking a glass of wine. It's a great place to hang out and one of my favorite spots of the house. My favorite thing about this home is right behind me, actually. The fireplace is, I think, my favorite piece in the house. It's just so, you know, Deer Isle originally was known for its granite and its granite quarries. And, you know, the fireplace is just this gorgeous kind of organic pieces of granite that I just think add such a wonderful kind of natural element to the space that you wouldn't get in any other way. I think what gives a home soul is people who intentionally want to create spaces for themselves and their families, and both those experiences that they have within the space, but it is so much of it is about intention. And so I think as a designer, it's really about kind of understanding how people want to use a space and how they want to feel in it, and really kind of being able to capture their essence in a way, translating that. And I think, you know, touches of family heirlooms or quirky, fun things that just give people joy, those are the moments that I think really inject soul into a space. Welcome to the primary bedroom. I know I keep saying this, but it's one of my favorite places in the house. I just love this house. So this is a very kind of, as you can see, tall ceilings, very light, airy space. I really actually every day sit on this chaise and look out at the view of the water and read a book. Yeah, I just wanted it to be a little bit of a mix between kind of light and airy and also bringing in some kind of texture and pattern. So the walls are Simply White by Benjamin Moore. And then on the floor, I have kind of a textured jute rug with actually an antique Persian rug that I sourced from Passerine Rugs in Washington, D.C. And I just thought it went so beautifully, kind of playing off of the greens and the rest of the house with this shop amber quilt. And these nightstands were fabricated by Kidwell Fabrications, and Kyle Kidwell does a bunch of custom woodworking for and sells often to the trade, and he's based in Portland, Maine, and so it was really great to get these custom made for the house. And then over here, I have just some bookshelves. It's always a little tricky about how you deal with these kind of lower areas, but I felt like this worked really well. Just kind of incorporated a bunch of books from college and beyond. And this is actually one of my mom's collages and one of her paintings. And yeah, I just feel like this space to me is serene, which is how I want a bedroom to feel. Here we are in the upstairs bathroom, and this room is also, as you can tell, painted white, but it's a little bit of a different white. It's actually linen by Benjamin Moore, but we cut the pigment in half, and it's just a little bit creamier, and I think it works really well in here. And the floors are actually, you know, wooden floors, painted, epoxied so that they don't get messed up with the water from the shower, and painted a very light gray that I think works really beautifully with the tile in the shower. So I think we kind of have two stars of the show in here. The one is the clawfoot tub, and this is actually original to the house. The previous owners had it, and it just fits perfectly in this space. I added this little shelf to put kind of knickknacks on, and just, I like to, you know, drink water or a glass of wine in the bath, so you can put that and then just have some candles. And yeah, it's just a lovely place to sit and relax. And actually, one of my best friends from high school, her family owns a contracting company, and they helped do kind of the second round of renovations. So they helped me with this shelf and the shower renovation as well. So over here we have a piece by Bruce Bolger, who is a local artist on the island. I went to high school with his son. And over here we just have this cute mirror, and I just liked how it was adding like a little bit of a geometric moment here, which the house doesn't have very much of, but it felt good to have it here. The sconces were actually original to the house, and yeah, they just worked so well. So loved being able to keep those. Actually, all of the hardware I kept. So again, they had really good taste that way. So this is the renovated shower. This used to be a solid wall here, and then the opening used to be quite closed, so it was pretty dark under the eaves there. And I really wanted to lighten it up and make it just a little bit more modern, but I added kind of this beautiful Moroccan sellage tile, and I just absolutely love how it turned out. I think it is just such a kind of fun place to be in, and makes taking a shower a little bit more fun, and have some kind of unlacquered brass waterworks fixtures in there as well that I added. So yeah, love this shower. When someone steps into the home, I'd really love for them to feel a sense of calm and quiet and airiness. I think the amount of windows and the communication between the indoors and the outdoors in this space is really important. So I want them to know where they are and to feel a sense of place, but I also want it to feel very relaxed and cozy. This is the guest bedroom, the second bedroom in the house. Again, there are only 2 bedrooms, and it's a tiny little space, but it works really well to have friends stay with me. And I just kind of love that it's tucked under the eaves. I really didn't change anything other than to paint the space white. Again, this is simply white, and just have some actually Serena and Lily dressers. And then again, just wanted to incorporate a little artistic moment over in the corner. Some more paintings by the artist Linda Deming that I think just add a little pop and reminder of where you are and kind of the artistic community. What does home mean to me? I grew up on Deer Isle. It's a very tight-knit, small community. There are only about 3,000 people who live here year-round. And I went to high school here, and some of my best friends are from high school, and, you know, both of my parents have been here for about, 40 years. And so home to me really is tied to a sense of place, and this idea that it's kind of a combination of the physical place and the community and the people who live there and how they come together. And your home is a physical manifestation of who you are as a person. And so that might not be the most straightforward answer, but I think it can be elusive. But I really think it's tied to the natural environment and the people who make you feel safe and bring you joy.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.